And we are recording. How's the sound on my end? Does it sound okay?
Super good. How is my sound? Is it good?
Yeah, super clear. I feel like you have great internet connection at all.
Yeah, it's not. It's my phone. Like I already this happened before so many times that now, yeah, that's why it's good.
Technology. Anyway, like I just said, it would be nice if you could give us a little introduction about who you are, where you're from, what you do, and what you hope to get out of this little, let's say, 45 minutes or so.
Perfect. So my name is Elena. I'm originally from Spain, but I've been traveling around for the last 2 years. And currently I'm gonna be based in Miami for I'm
Wow.
moving in 3 days and I'm gonna be there for a few months. And yeah, I'm 22 years old. I'm currently studying two masters, one in media communication and another one in interaction design.
Right.
And I started my career in 2020 as a freelancer graphic designer and social media manager. But then last year I realized that I really like product design. So I decided to pivot and I fell in love with it and I started doing a lot of research and learning and talking to people.
Mm.
And yeah, so at the moment I'm a product designer and student. I'm doing a little bit of everything right now. And I would like from this call to get to know you and I
Mm.
think you're really cool and I really like your post and I think you're super experienced and I can get great advice from you and some guidance because right now since I'm traveling and studying and doing a lot of things I'm a little bit lost
Right.
but it's a work in progress. So
Well, well, let's
yeah.
start with that because you're 22 years old, and you just told me like how you're pushing 10 years of experience into 2 years. So, like, how does that happen? How do you go from being in Spain to suddenly like doing two masters and flying all over the world? And how did that happen?
Okay. So it's cool that you ask because it's something that people don't ask and I'm like kind of proud of it.
Yeah.
So I started in 2020 because some of my friends needed some help. I always had an eye for social media and graphic design and because my bachelor is in advertising and public relations, so it has nothing to do with like it has something to do, but not like 100%. So I started helping some friends and then I went on Erasmus to Sweden that same year and I met a lot of people internationally and I was telling them that I was helping my friends with whatever I could do, like with graphic design and social media. And they were like, oh, super cool. Can you help us too? So I found myself with a lot of projects and a lot of people needing my help. And I was like, okay, I think I can start taking this a little bit more serious. So I started applying and I got a job in a very big company as a graphic designer in the marketing team. But I was
Mm.
lucky enough that it was remote, so I could keep traveling and visiting my friends and still doing projects while I was doing this job. That at the end, like I learned a lot and I made a lot of connections, but it was not the best because, and I'm super sorry if this is an unpopular opinion, but I don't think marketing people have a they respect designers. Like they think that
Right.
designers are just a tool that they can use to get what they want and things like, oh, can you make this more yellow and stuff like that? And you're like, what do you mean? Like this is the yellow that it's like in the guidelines. I cannot make it more yellow.
Yeah.
And and yeah, and that was it. And then I also got a full-time job as a social media manager because I was like, okay, I'm kind of good at it. Let's go for it. And then last year in February, I have a sister and she's 10 years older and she's also a graphic designer.
Mm.
And she was like, why don't we do something together? Like I have a lot of projects, you have a lot of projects, we should join forces. And I was like, okay, let's do it. So I quitted both jobs and we started a company so we could freelance together. But
Wow.
again, my sister is a graphic designer, like she does everything in the graphic design field. And one of these projects that I got, because sometimes we do projects separately, sometimes we do it together.
Mhm.
It started as some people looking for a social media manager for this startup that they were trying to build and they were trying to promote it. And then once I arrived, I was like, okay, so where is the product? and they said, no, we don't have it. And I was like, okay. And they're like, maybe you can help us since you're a graphic designer. Like, how do you envision this? And I was like, okay, let me do some research. Like, who are we targeting? Who's gonna be like the main user of this? Like, is it gonna be you guys, or is it gonna be? They're like, yeah, I think so. So that started the research. That it then I started looking for references and people that did similar things. And I was like, okay, let me open Figma real quick. And I started like just sketching like some wireframes and some stuff. And they were like, oh, we really like it. Do you mind continuing? And I was like, okay, let's put on pause the social media because there is no product to promote. And that's how it started. That's how it started. And I finished my bachelor and I enrolled my master's, and this is where I am right now.
Man,
Yeah.
that is quite an adventure, especially in such a short time span. I think you have all the right to be super proud of that. Like that's
Thank you.
hands down, you just did a mic drop, you know.
No, I don't know. I don't know.
But okay, that was really cool to hear. Can you? I believe you prepared like 3 or 4 questions that you wanted to go over. Maybe we can start with the first one.
Yeah, of course. I'm not super sure I remember which one was the first one.
Yeah, whichever
Uh,
of mind also works.
okay, now perfect. So, what advice would you give to yourself? Like, doesn't have to be 10 years ago. 10 years ago was my idea, but it can be like 5 years ago or whatever you want. Like, what would you tell yourself?
What would I tell myself 10 years ago? Well, I mean, I
Mhm.
guess 10 years is a good time span because 10 years ago, I was just working for 2 or 3 years, right? I've been in the like working as a professional for 12 or 13 years now. 10 years ago, I was a very different person, very different person. And the first thing that comes to mind is that I would probably tell myself to do something about my anxiety, take it more serious because I was a very, very nervous kid, you know. So I would be asked to present something to a client or in front of my team. And just the thought of it would give me shivers down my spine and sweaty hands. You know, I would just be there like, no, I don't want to do this at all. um, and a few years later, I started taking. So I was working at this company called Exhibia. Then Exhibia is an IT
Mhm.
consultancy, and they offered me internal trainings with hosted by a former actress. There were kind of like
Wow.
personality and acting trainings, and she really helped me to kind of face my fears of public speaking. And I wish
Mhm.
I would have done that a bit sooner because I always did know how to tell a good story. I was just kind of afraid to tell it. And
Mhm.
so if I could have done that first, I think getting anxiety out of the way gives so much freedom to actually focus on the thing that you're supposed to do, whether that's presenting something or talking to someone else about your craft or, you know, anything that yeah, kind of just makes you nervous and makes you zone out of the actual topic that you should be focused on. So dealing
Mhm.
with that yeah, uh, kind of anxiety would have been my first advice to myself 10 years ago. Like, it's a cliche, but kind of like, just do it. Go do it, take classes, and face it heads on because it will speed so many things up. Yeah.
That's so cool. And yeah, I completely understand that because when I enrolled my bachelor in advertising, it was the same. Like I had to do so many things, like talking to people, interviewing people, presenting to my classmates and to professors and to like super big crowds. And at the beginning, I was never super shy. I always loved talking to people, but presenting something that you did to someone like makes you so feel so vulnerable that sometimes it's really hard. Like it's not the same when you talk to someone about something random that you're like, yeah, I don't care talking to people. But when you have to showcase something that you put your heart and your mind and so much effort, like it's super difficult. So I completely get that. And wait, you said that earlier in your career you started already like presenting things to clients and talking to a lot of people. Can I ask you, how did you start? Like, how was the start of your career?
Yeah, sure. So I'm a high school dropout. That's one thing I share over and over again. So I didn't finish high school, but um, I was dealing with really severe anxiety back then. And that's why I dropped out of high school. I didn't dare to go out into the street or talk to people. Like it was getting pretty bad. But then at one point, I was posed with a question. So we have this thing in the Netherlands where if you don't go to school, the government will come knocking on your door and be like, "Hey kid, uh, that's not how the world works," you know?
Okay.
And so this guy came to my door, and after a few weeks of working with him or talking with him, he said, "Well, Dylan, you can either go back to school, or I'm going to take you away from home for 2 years to a re-education camp in France." And that freaked me out so much. That freaked me out so much that I decided to go back to school. And this is the moment in my life. I was about 16 or 17, maybe a bit younger, I'm not sure. But this was the moment in my life where I, for the first time, consciously decided to face my fears and start fighting it. And things started going really quickly from then on. So I started doing secondary vocabulary educations, uh, which is very much focused on crafts. So I started as a visual designer, and I had to work my way up through like all the way from the lowest levels to well, there's 4 levels in secondary vocabulary education here. So I went from the first. I did that in a year, did an internship there. Then I was picking up a lot of speed, so they allowed me to skip the second level. And then I did the third and the fourth level combined in like 2 years' time, because I was picking up these things really fast, because I was always creating things already, because I loved my little Photoshop and Illustrator and everything. I was already doing that. And it was during those level 3 and 4 where I started doing internships at companies that took design very serious. And I got incredibly lucky with that, because the first one I joined was a company called Category 1. In Dutch, it's Categorie 1. That doesn't exist anymore. But the founder there is now one, or used to be one of the main leads at Eden Speakerman. So there's like this large design and communication agency. They have hundreds of people working for them worldwide. And I learned a lot from this guy. He was this rock star, cool dude that just gave me a lot of confidence. You know, he was nice to be around. And I was, with that confidence, I was able to land my second internship. And that company still exists, and it's called today.nl, if you want to look it up. And they are a branding / communication agency. And I worked for them for 5 years after my internship. They gave me all the tools and all the freedom I needed to start developing myself as a designer. So from day one, it was me presenting my work to clients. They don't have anyone in the middle. They generally don't they do have project managers now, but they don't use them to limit communication from people towards clients. You know what I mean? So everyone working at Today is always exposed to business, and that something just clicked there. So in the first 2 years, they allowed me to get better at my craft, and then I felt confident being able to design things I thought were good looking. And then I started noticing I have a keen eye for technology, because I love technology. And then we met this guy called Roy van Balen, which is a Dutch UX researcher. And back then he was, I think, working for Philips. But he was about to switch to a new assignment. And he told me, Dylan, I think you can make nice looking stuff, but I can make smart looking, like smart stuff. So let us collaborate, and I'll teach you a bit of my craft, and then you can take the lead on the visual design. And that's what we did. We worked on a project together with a few others, now known as Studiekeuze 1, 2, 3, roughly translates to study choice 1, 2, 3, which is still till this day the largest platform in this country to pick your next course or study. So there's like 500,000 to 1 million students every year going through that platform to look for their next thing to do. And working with him was a bit of an eye-opener for me. And that's when basically the rest of my life started, as in diving deeper into psychology and research. And I was always interested in business, and very much like you, I'm all over the place. And I needed to figure out a way for myself, at least, to prioritize my learnings. And that's a whole other story that is like the past 7, 8 years, you know.
That's super cool, and I think it's super inspiring how you, because I got the impression that you were like the kind of introverted kid that stays at home playing with like his computer and his design programs and everything. And from there to now, like you have a podcast, you're talking to random people, you're mentoring people, like that's incredible. Like the arc, it's so good, and it's super inspiring, and yeah, I'm super happy that I'm talking to you, because it's really an inspiration of like how things that can start as something that, oh, this is my biggest weakness, and working on it can become your biggest asset. And yeah, I think that's great.
I'm very happy to hear that. And if you can take anything away from it, the one thing I would always like people to remember is that it's perfectly fine to feel comfortable in the things that you don't know. Because I think this is where design is really hard, is that you see so many things around you that are better than the work you're doing all the time. And it's intimidating, you know. So you can be crushed by this, let's say imposter syndrome. Everyone calls it imposter syndrome, but I think it's a bit deeper than that. It might be a fear of thinking that you'll never be good enough to reach a certain level of design that you're looking up to. And it's nonsense. It just takes time, and you need to prioritize what you want to get good at. Right? Yeah.
Yeah, no, I completely get that, and like I'm still struggling. Now it's less than before, but when I decided to like pivot, because I was like, oh, I like product design, but I was not like super confident that I wanted to do that. But when I decided to turn things around and be like, okay, let's pursue this, let's do a master's, let's talk to people, and all of this, I was struggling a lot with my confidence, because I was like, okay, I'm kind of doing good with what I'm doing, and I know people, and I'm doing projects, and I'm doing everything, and now I'm back in square one. Like this is a whole new career. This is like, I don't know anything. I don't know how to do anything. So I was struggling a lot with my confidence, but I don't know if I was talking to someone, or it was me realizing this, that it was not entirely getting back on square one, like, because I already had a lot of soft skills, and I already had so many things that were helping me in this new career. And yeah, it was mostly like imposter syndrome, like, okay, let's stick to that. Like, okay, I have the soft skills at least. Like maybe I'm lacking so many things, but at least there's something that I can hold on to. So yeah, I completely get that.
Right. It's so funny that you say like, oh, I felt like I was going back to square one. I mean, it is exactly that feeling that, that That's the reason why we called our business Square One. So it's this, it feels like starting over again continuously. I think even in your career, in product design, you're gonna face moments where you feel like, hey, you've learned something really well, and like a new can of worms just opens because you're finding that there's more to design again. And this will just keep happening, right? Because you might shift from a different market, from one market to another, or you might realize that, well, you became good at a craft, but you want to focus more on research now, or the other way around. And again, the longer you're in it, the deeper you go and the more you'll find. So for me, it's very much about kind of just embracing that Square One feeling. Maybe the art of design is being good at kickstarting or starting over.
Yeah. Yeah, completely agree. 100%. And so is this something that it's happening to you right now, like day to day?
Oh man, yeah, all the time.
Yeah.
So, yeah, literally all the time. I think I have this feeling every year for something. For example, now I am working on an internal product at ING. ING is a bank in the Netherlands, but also throughout Europe. And last year, I started as the sole designer on a small team with 8 people. But we're hitting a lot of successes, and now we have 2 more designers, and there's 4 teams, and it's scaling. And it has a very complex stakeholder field within the bank, because there's all these big people that, they have requirements and mandates, and they need to be kind of aligned, and these people need to prioritize things together, but they don't always like each other. And this is a whole new thing to me that I've done before on a smaller scale, but managing like multiple stakeholders with direct relations to the actual CEO of a bank that has like 60,000 people working for them. That is like this new overwhelming thing to me, being able to navigate those conversations and actually being able to say, no, this has to wait. You have to prioritize this, and bringing research insights to these people. That is, let's say, a new kind of thing that I'm now getting into. That again, there's been times where I felt, and I have no clue what I'm doing. But you start reading again, and you start talking to people, and you realize again, dealing with people. Like, if you know how to deal with people, you're going to be able to deal with so many things in life. And stakeholders are also just people, and they have fears and goals. And if you're able to talk about those things with them, suddenly things become simpler again. So yeah, stakeholder management, to give it an official term, has been my Square One feeling lately. But I'm crawling out of it. I'm getting confident again. So, but sure, it happens all the time. I think there won't ever be a time where I'm not going to feel like that at some point. Yeah.
Yeah, that's super nice to hear, and super encouraging, because at the same time that I'm struggling, I also kind of like it. I'm like, it's so exciting that I can learn new things every day, and that I can, like, there's always room for improvement. So it's nice to hear that this thing never goes away. Like, and not 100%. Like, of course, every time you learn something new, you get like more experience and everything. But there's always something new that you still don't know, and that it's gonna like open to you, and you're gonna have to start again. So that's really.
Sorry.
No, go.
I do think there's there's something to it. I think that there might be people that don't experience this a lot, but that might be because they don't challenge themselves to do something uncomfortable. I think it's very much tied to allowing yourself to do the uncomfortable over and over again, because that is, to me at least, the place in which growth happens. Like, doing just enough uncomfortable things that that doesn't crush you, but also doesn't stagnate you, like if everything is comfortable, you might be becoming boring, as in you might not be growing as a designer, you might not be learning new things, you might not be asking the right questions.
Yeah, 100% agree on that. And wait, you said that now the team is scaling, and I guess that you're managing people and managing teams. How does a day in your work look like?
However, let's see. So together with Cherry, my co-founder, we run Square One. And last year we got our first employee, Sasha. And we are a team of three. We sell product designers to clients integrated with their business. And we try to train ourselves towards product owners / product managers so that we understand the full research to design to development life cycle of a product or service. And for me right now, I'm working at ING 4 days a week, or with ING 4 days a week. So I spend 2 days a week at their office, and I spend 2 days a week here in our studio. And my daily life is very dependent on the objective of a certain period of time. So right now, for example, last year, let me get the story straight. So last year, the European Central Bank mandated that every bank in Europe can prove that a bank makes decisions based on sustainability data. So sustainability meaning that you need to prove as a bank that you have conversations with your clients about sustainability and have plans to improve their business and your own. And if the banks don't do this, cannot prove this by the end of Q1 of 2024, the European Central Bank is going to be handing out fines and bad publicity. Like, this is pretty much the core of my focus right now. So you can imagine that Q1 is 12 weeks, is not a lot of time to go from getting this letter to doing something that allows the bank to prove anything at large scale. And so my daily right now is talking to stakeholders about how they envision that process to work, talking to people within the bank that have to do the work to see how their day-to-day life works, and then see how we can adjust their workflow, let's say, to eventually have something in a product that helps them prove that they actually make these decisions with like specific data in mind. So my whole day is running from people to people, asking the right questions, to finding few spots in my week where I can design solutions with the teams. So right now it's very hectic. But that's in cases where we don't have this insane deadline, my days look a bit more structured. So we'll usually set out for a research objective. So let's say we have a product or service that we're working on, and we sit down with users or consumers to constantly see how they use that product and what they run into. And usually these observations, they inspire us to prioritize certain research objectives. It could be something very small, just trying to understand why something doesn't work in an application for them, to something really big, like a gut feeling. Or what would happen if we tried killing Google? Like this kind of weird, vague, big objective. And based on those objectives, we'll start planning actual research plans and start scheduling stuff with the people that we need to talk to. And we bring all these insights back to the team, or all the teams. I will start asking them questions too, like what could we do to alleviate these pain points or these opportunities that we spotted, or anything that we come across, like what can we do with that? That's pretty much the common, the shared question among all these objectives. And yeah, then we'll get into some sort of exploration or more like a ideation phase where we start looking at, okay, so what could we do? And that's when the fun starts, right? Like we believe we have found a certain problem. We'll attach some confidence to that. Like, do we believe we know enough about it, or do we feel very insecure about it? But if we know enough, then we're going to try and think of ways to make that better, or to innovate something, or make something new. And that is the thing that drives me most. That's where technology comes into place. That's where IDs come into place, visuals come into place, all these things. And that's when I feel like I'm on fire, because I can always produce a lot of ideas into great detail. But it is these kind of sections in time that will define what I'm doing on a daily basis. I might be very focused on research, which means I'm mostly observing people or asking very specific questions to people. If I'm ideating, I am getting people together to think of ideas, and then my day-to-day will be executing those ideas to a point where they become very tangible, and then bringing people together again to see if that's what we were all thinking of, and how we could move that forward. And the overarching part, what I'm focused on every day, is just prioritizing. So what is the first thing that we need to do now to move forward?
Okay.
Yeah.
Super cool. So you, yeah. Sorry.
No, I was just finishing it by, there's not a fixed script for my day. So the priority is the most important part.
Okay. Yeah, no, I was gonna say that it seems that you do a little bit of everything, like from the beginning until the end. Like you're also crafting and doing stuff. And what would you say is your favorite? Because I get that you talk to people a lot and try to understand how they feel and what are their problems and everything. But I perceive that you enjoy crafting and designing a lot as well. So what would you say is your favorite?
My absolute favorite will always be visual design. I just like making beautiful things. But there's a but to that I feel like I can only do that if I'm really, really solving a problem that I feel invested in. And that's why I'm also very motivated constantly to make things work, to make my business work, or to make a product work. So I will do all the things that are needed. And I've even been contemplating not to call myself a designer anymore, because I feel like I'm a maker. Like I will do whatever it takes, because I go all the way from the conceptual initial phase, prioritizing the first steps to try something new, all the way to months down the line being with development teams. And I will even write some code just to get an understanding of how the project works if it's a digital product. I love all of it. I'm a bit of an addict. I spend too little time on my private life. This is like, I have a skewed balance. There's no such thing as a work-life balance for me. It's like work, sleep balance. That's it. But it makes me very happy, right? So that's the other part to it. So yeah, I do a little bit of everything all the time. I had to prioritize my learnings over time, because otherwise you risk not getting good at anything. So I did spend years on research primarily, and then years on visual craft again. And then I spent about 2-3 years being a product owner, and also taking courses on that. I took courses with Jake Knapp for design sprints, and I took courses with Jeff Sutherland to learn more about Scrum and agile working. And So it's constantly finding this topic. And then during my nights, I'm usually just still crafting things because I like it so much. That's generally how it works for me. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so cool, and it clearly shows that you enjoy what you do, and that it makes you happy, and it's something that I always say, that I love to hear people that are passionate about what they do. Like, can be design, can be whatever, but it's so cool to hear someone talking about the things that they really enjoy, and with you I'm seeing it, and it's super cool, and it's super inspiring. And I wanted to ask you, would you do something differently?
This question came up recently. So
Really?
yeah, we were talking about it among friends, and they told
Okay.
me I wasn't allowed to pick something like engineering or product ownership because I'm always doing a little bit of all these things.
Mm.
So I had to pick something completely different. And
Okay.
at first I couldn't pin it down. I was like, well, then what about maybe game design? And they're like, no, that's design. And then, okay, let me think. And I came up with something that 10 years ago, I could have never been that person because I was so shy. But now that I'm really comfortable with people and large groups, I can see myself maybe opening something like a barber shop, but
Okay.
maybe a barber shop with drinks and food and these kind of things, like open something physical, a place with cool shirts, a place with, a really nice hangout. That could
Okay.
be something that I'd like, but for the love of God, I will not give up what I'm doing now. It's like,
Yeah. No, that's super cool. That's really, really cool. And the fact that you're considering it, like, maybe it's something that happens in the future. Like, maybe you can do both.
so this is the thing. Cherry and I have been contemplating around what Square One can be in the future for a long time. And since we want to help people start over or start something new, uh, we have this vision of the future where Square One becomes this cool place where you can hang out and actually just have a coffee, but also kickstart one of your new ideas. So there is something going on there. Like maybe one day we can manage that. Yeah.
You just have to hire the barber and get some t-shirts that you can design. Like,
Oh
then
man,
it's done.
there's so many people that I would want to collaborate with. Like so many.
That's so cool. Super cool. And we're running out of time, so this is gonna be the last question probably. And because you mentioned the future and how you envision the future and everything, how do you think the future of product design looks like? Because I was talking to a lot of people, and I got so many different things, like, oh, AI is gonna take over, like visual design is gonna die in the next few years, or now it's gonna be AR, VR, like, it's gonna change, like there are gonna be like so many different profiles, or the market is too saturated, like now it's super difficult. Like, what's your take on this?
Yeah, I'm a bit controversial here, maybe, and then people are gonna give me some slack on the internet. But I want to tell everyone to stop thinking about these technologies and tools because, yeah, they can be disruptive to our workflow. But being a designer was never dependent on Figma or code or AI or any of these things. Being a designer means you're solving problems for people because you're creating something new. And who the hell cares whether you do that with AI or Figma or on a piece of paper? It doesn't really matter, because what I thoroughly believe is that the designers that can fix these problems will be the ones that are always relevant, regardless of the tooling that comes to life. And sure, so last year we developed a prototype for a AI tool of our own. And AI, to me, will hugely impact the way we will execute our work. However, I do not think it will radically change the way we should approach a problem. And I guess the only advice I can give there is don't feel too much attached to your tooling. I have a big love for my tooling, right? I like my Figma, I like my Cinema 4D, I like my framers and my notions, but they will at some point also become frustrating and something better comes along. And then we just start using that. And maybe our work will speed up because AI becomes smarter and starts taking over certain boring things that we don't like doing anyway, or it will speed us up because it's going to be easier to create something. But the hard part is solving the right problem. And that is the real skill you need to nail down. And everything else is a byproduct.
Super cool. Yeah, I agree 100%. If this is controversial, I will support you 100% on this. Yeah,
Good.
it's super cool. And yeah,
No, go
I
ahead.
think we're running out of time.
Yeah,
No,
you
I
don't
was
have
gonna say
any concerns.
okay.
If you have
And
any more questions, feel free.
okay. No, I don't think so. Like I think it was super good. And if I have one more thing to ask, it's what advice would you tell someone that is starting right now? Like if you had to start over right now, what would you do?
If I had to start over right now, so I would lose all the experience.
Okay.
So just now we covered that I would really like to take those trainings to become more confident. I think that's one thing. The second thing is I will probably start with a craft again. But I might limit myself a bit on which craft to focus on, because early in my career, I wanted to create everything. As in, I was working in print, I liked typography, I liked illustration and 3D, and I wanted to do graphic design and in digital, and like I was all over the place. Maybe I'll try and prioritize my interest a bit. So one piece of advice that I give a lot of designers is see if you can find 2 or 3 designers that you really look up to. Like the moment you see their stuff, you're like, oh man, I just want to be that person. And then start replicating their work because it narrows the scope to specifically the things that they create. So maybe you'll find out you really like 3D artifacts, right? But not so much typography. Is kind of like they don't do much with that. And that it helps you kind of focus on these elements that makes you feel like they're a good designer, and it allows you to start creating those things too. It's a bit hard at the start, but at least you have something to measure your work against, and you can start looking like saving YouTube videos and search on TikTok for the specific parts that allows you to create those things. And that will become like, that will make it much easier to figure out what to focus on for a while, from a craft perspective, at least.
Okay. How about networking and connecting with people? What's your take on this?
Networking is something I've only recently become good at. Had
Okay.
to do with my social anxiety before as well.
Mm-mm. Yeah, makes sense.
My advice to anyone is to show all your stuff, even your ugly stuff. Not on your portfolio per se, but when networking, don't be afraid to show people stuff and ask for feedback. That's what I'm trying to say. Treat your LinkedIn like it's your CV. It's the most important part of your professional online life. It's a horrible platform. No one likes it, but every single professional is on there, almost. And your LinkedIn will be read more than your CV ever will. So I think that is an important thing to nail. And you can actually apply a lot of cool design patterns to that profile. So start reaching out to the people that you think are relevant and make your LinkedIn profile look like best in class. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so I have another piece of advice, because one thing that really helped me land every single client and job I ever wanted was on LinkedIn. For years, I've been doing this. Just every month, I would pick like maybe 100 people at companies I find interesting, and specifically the product managers and product design managers. And I started sending connection requests with a very honest message, just saying, hey, I'm Dylan. I'm a product designer. I see that you're doing cool stuff. I'm doing cool stuff. I'd like to grow my network. Do you want to connect? Something like that. No strings attached, no sales pitch, no, not applying for anything. Just, hey, do you want to connect?
Mm-hmm.
That grew my LinkedIn network from, let's say, a few hundred to back then around 7,000-8,000. I am not worried about getting clients or jobs, because I am in the loop before the, let's say, the vacancies are even posted. So my big advice there is get into the network before anyone feels to post a vacancy.
That's so cool. Like, I never thought about it, but yeah, it's super cool. Like, instead of playing the game, be ahead of the game. Like, that's super cool.
It actually, the thinking is very simple. You want to work for a product. Who hires people in product? They're product managers and other designers. Connect with them. Like, that's it. You know, that is your target group. Treat it like another product. Your LinkedIn is a product where you get to do your acquisition.
Super cool. Yeah, I like it a lot. Like, I think this is a super good piece of advice, and I'm gonna put it into practice like 100%. Like, I was already like reaching out to people that I thought they were cool, but mostly this like, oh, I want to learn from you. Like, you seem incredible. You seem super cool. But I never thought about connecting with people that are like me, like people that we can share something, that we can discuss about things happening in like at the same time. And I think that's super cool. And it's a great idea.
And you'll be able to post things on LinkedIn eventually and get seen by the people that are relevant to you. So if you ask around, you'll find a lot of people saying like, yeah, LinkedIn is so full of spam and all these stupid people talking about stupid topics. It's like, sure, but that's also because you didn't connect to the right people, you know, like
100%. Yeah. Yeah. No, I think the problem with yeah. Go.
Yeah.
No. I was just gonna like go places, but it's not
okay. But I do want to hear it. Okay, let's do the thought exploration, and then we'll put it to an end.
Okay. Yeah, no, I was gonna say that what I really don't like about LinkedIn, and that's probably because I'm a Gen Z, and we hate formalities. Like, we hate people that take things too serious. And I think LinkedIn is the place where people take things like serious to the extreme. Like, please don't talk like that. Like, don't say that. Like, making a post and then being like, thoughts, agree, and it's like I would never reply to someone like that. Like, or people that are super concerned, like, oh, sorry, I don't know you, I don't want to connect with you, and it's like, okay, then don't. Like, it's not so serious. And yeah, that's it. It was a dumb thing to add to the end, but
no, not at all, because it actually brings me a new realization, because I don't think about different generations that often. But there's something very important to it, because one of the core skills of a designer is getting to understand the people they need to focus on, right? So it can be a user, it can be a consumer, it can be a stakeholder. But when you're looking for jobs or clients, the user is that person buying your services, right? That signs your contract. And they might be generations older than you. So they will give zero shits about your idea of formalities. You know what I mean? Like, because they grew up different. So it's your job to understand them and adjust to them instead of expecting them to be informal as well.
Yeah.
And when you get to know them, you know, you will probably meet in the middle. Like they might be formal on LinkedIn, but in real life, they like to drink beer, go out. There's a rock star T-shirt underneath their suit, and you know, they're cool people too.
Yeah, super true.
All right, I think that's it for today. But I had a lot of fun talking to you. This is so inspiring. I'm so happy to see how well you're doing. Please stay in touch. This thing is going to go up on Spotify, Apple Podcast, on YouTube. I will be posting clips on TikTok, and I will be posting some snippets on LinkedIn maybe. If I can find you, I will tag you, but please send over like where I can find you. Then that'll make it a bit easier. Then I'll tag you.
100%. Yeah, it was super nice talking to you. You're super cool, and you are super inspiring. And I'm gonna take your advice, and it was super nice. It was super fun.
Cool. Then we both nailed it.
Perfect.
Thanks, Elena. We'll talk soon.
See you. Bye bye.
Bye bye.